On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where Wisp comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. Wisp. That's hellowisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
I knew at 35 or 40 years old that at some point in my 40s, this is probably going to start creeping up. Some of these symptoms, not all of them, but if I got hot out of nowhere, or my heart was racing out of control, or I was gaining weight for no reason and eating better than I'd ever have and working out, I would have been like, oh, maybe I'm starting to get into that perimenopause place. But the truth is, it's because of a lack of education on the part of doctors, a lack of education on the part of society, a lack of conversation about it. We just don't know.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 672 with guest Tamsen Fadal. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here. I'm smiling big for a few reasons. First is because starting on April 28th, 2025, I'm doing something I haven't done in 9 years. I am going to host a free 5-day challenge, and it's based on How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. Do you remember that book? You probably read it. You probably found me from that book. But if you haven't, I still think that you will enjoy the 5-day challenge. I'm going to be covering 3 of the biggest chapters from that book in the 5-day challenge. Day 1 is sort of an introduction, self-awareness. Day 2 is all about checking out, numbing out. Right? Day 3 is about self-sabotage and why we do it and how to get out of our own way. Day 4 is around perfectionism, that never good enough loop. I know. I can't wait to host this. I have poured my heart and soul into making sure that the curriculum is not too much. You don't want to feel like you're trying to get a sip of water out of a fire hose, but just enough for you to be able to get something really amazing, valuable tools, strategies to learn from it for free over the 5 days. And then at the end of that, total transparency, I'm going to be offering How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, the 8-week experience, which is a paid group coaching program where we are going to cover these in more depth and also several more of the chapters that were the more, the most popular ones that I heard from all of you: people pleasing, control, isolating instead of reaching out. So those topics are going to be covered in the 8-week experience, but the 5-day challenge is free. It starts on Monday, the 28th. If you go to andreaowen.com/habits, you can sign up for that. Even if you're listening to this and you're a few days in, if it's at the middle of the week or even the end of the week, you can still have access to it. There's going to be a pop-up Facebook group. I'll go live in there and answer your questions because I want you to have access to me in that way. And so if you love the book, what better than to learn a little bit more from the person that actually wrote it? That's me. So I hope to see you there. andreaowen.com/habits. So that is really the only important announcement I have today. I'm super excited about that. So I hope to see you there. And today's episode has been long awaited to release. I interviewed Tamsen, and she was on my calendar for a long time, but I was doing the 10 episode series on coming home to yourself, which thank you for all your feedback about that. It seems that you guys really liked it, and I loved creating it for you. Let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Tamsen Fadal is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, author, documentary filmmaker, and social media's midlife mentor. After more than 3 decades as a news anchor, Tamsen pivoted her career towards women's advocacy, guiding her audience of 4+ million through midlife and beyond. She is the creator and executive producer of the PBS documentary, The M Factor, Shedding the Silence on Menopause, which has been viewed by over 1 million women across 350 cities and 42 countries, and the author of her new book, How to Menopause: Take Charge of Your Health, Reclaim Your Life, and Feel Even Better than before. So without further ado, here is Tamsen. Tamsen, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk about this. I've been following you on Instagram, and I am obsessed with not just this book, but the fact that you wrote it, the fact that this is a conversation in the zeitgeist now, and especially selfishly, because it's happening right as I am entering this phase of my life. So I'm like, phew, if it was 10 years from now, and I would have kind of missed the party a little bit. But let me back up before I get too excited. As you are now, one of the leading voices in this conversation around menopause and even perimenopause, what surprised you the most as you started to dive in about women's experiences when you started really getting into this topic?
I think what surprised me the most is the fact that we are all going through this quietly. Like we were all going through some of the same things. We don't all go through menopause the same way, obviously.
Right.
You're going to have a different experience than I've had, and you're going to have a different experience than somebody else, but we're all going to go through it. And I think that what has really, really been interesting to me is to hear that, we've kind of suffered silently and we've not said very much about it. And then our doctors don't really know very much about it. I think that has probably been one of the most shocking things to me.
That is interesting because my most recent OBGYN recently retired, and I hired her specifically because I got a referral because I wanted someone progressive. And so when I asked her, this was just over a year ago, I said, I'm having a little bit of symptoms. I was 48, almost 49 at the time. And I said, I've heard that starting HRT or, whatever they call it now, menopause therapy can be helpful even before your symptoms are like full blown. And she said, no. And she's like, I don't think your symptoms are bad enough and she was flippant and casual about it. And I was like, okay, I guess I was so disappointed. And so it brings me to, I don't want to get like too fired up about that whole thing. Yeah. Can you just give us kind of like a crash course for people who maybe are new to the conversation? What is the consensus now about when someone should maybe look into getting treatment for their symptoms, their menopause symptoms?
I think what somebody should do is really know what's going on way before we have to know what's going on. And I think that that's half the battle, if I'm being honest about it. If I knew at 35 or 40 years old that at some point in my 40s, this is probably going to start creeping up, some of these symptoms, not all of them, but if I got hot out of nowhere, or my heart was racing out of control, or I was gaining weight for no reason and eating better than I'd ever have and working out, I would have been like, oh, maybe I'm starting to get into that perimenopause place. But the truth is, it's because of a lack of education on the part of doctors, a lack of education on the part of society, a lack of conversation about it. We just don't know. I would say, as young as you are, know what's going on and what happens. And that is half the battle as you go into this and start dealing with some of these symptoms. And then when it comes to going and being treated, paying attention to things, deciding what you want to do, not everybody's going to want to or is a candidate for hormone therapy. I'm not a doctor. That is something you talk to your personal doctor about. But you do have to have a doctor that's willing to discuss that. And the sooner you find that person, the better. So not waiting till you have symptoms to then go find the doctor, but knowing that healthcare provider that you have chosen, and look, I was with mine for 20 plus years and then wound up having to change doctors, which kind of sucks. Like nobody wants to change doctors that you've trusted for such a long time.
That doctor.
I know, that's like a really personal doctor. That doctor has seen everything. And it's hard. It's a hard breakup, and it's hard for me. Was for me anyway, to go find somebody else. So, I wish that I had started to seek treatment for the symptoms that I was starting to go through in my early 40s versus 49. And that's when I started. It's smarter on a lot of different levels, and there's not really a consensus, and that's the problem. The problem is that we know a lot, but we still have a lot of data points that we need to hit. But if you start hormone therapy or some other type of lifestyle changes, when you're in that perimenopause phase, according to what your doctor thinks works best for you, you're going to be in a place where you're not suffering. And suffering is really important. And again, I'm not advocating for hormone therapy, but I am advocating for women not to suffer.
I love that. You're not advocating. So you're not here, like you're not getting a kickback. You're not getting paid by Big Pharma to come on podcasts. Let's get at that all the way.
No. Here's what I think about a lot. I think about the fact that my mother died of breast cancer. And if she were here today, she wouldn't be a candidate for hormone therapy. So she would have to figure something else out, something else out to deal with her hot flashes, most likely, because she went into a medical menopause, something else to deal with lack of sleep, something else to deal with weight gain, something else to deal with anxiety. So I think about that. And that's why what I advocate for is more research, more money, get this data, make women feel good about this phase that we're going into, not have doctors not knowing a lot. And it's not the doctor's fault, quite frankly. A lot of the incredible doctors out there are having to learn themselves after they graduate and go into practice themselves to figure out how to treat women in midlife, because midlife women have not really been a priority in any space.
Exactly. We could spend some time there, and I get, I have big feelings about it, but we won't. Can I just ask you this one thing? Is because this is what I see a lot, especially for some reason on Instagram and Facebook, and the comment where women, and they're usually middle age or older, pushing back against HRT because of the myth that it causes breast cancer. So can we talk about where that came from? And can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2002, there was a study, the Women's Health Initiative, that was done, and it was, it was looking at hormone therapy, and it was looking at hormone therapy not to see whether or not it caused breast cancer. It was a big study that was done. It was a big study that was released in 2002, and there was a press conference that got a lot of women, when the results were laid out, got a lot of women very, very scared about the fact that estrogen caused breast cancer, and that's where that came from. That was 20 plus years ago, and they looked at different data that had, one risk in this area, one risk in that area, whether we were talking about cardiovascular or breast cancer itself. Fast forward 2024 now, the guidelines have said that the data has not really supported that. They talk about some of the breakdown of the different points that came out of it. When you look at the population that was chosen for that study, you look at the type of hormone therapy that was used during that, which is very different from what we have right now, and you look at a number of other factors, that's not what supports it. So according to the Menopause Society, which kind of gives you the guidelines, they say the most effective treatment for dealing with certain symptoms of menopause is hormone therapy. There are contraindicators, of course. If you're somebody that has had breast cancer or a different kind of cancer, this is probably not the option for you. But it's, again, healthcare providers decide that. There are some women that have had different type of surgeries and might have contraindications that are still on hormone therapy. But that's not for me to figure out one way or another. But it's a decision you have to make with your doctor.
Yeah.
But that fear, and trust me, I had it, and I didn't even know where it came from. I just knew in the back of my head somewhere, estrogen equaled breast cancer. And I had no idea where it came from. And lo and behold, however many years later, now I realize, oh gosh, that's where, when I started doing work and researching the documentary, I'm like, that's where that fear came from. I had no idea, from a study that was done so long ago, but really the way the media reported it, the data that came from that, what the data really supported versus what that was. And any study that is done since then, and obviously there wasn't one was that big and that long, but any that have been done since then have not supported those fearful claims. And it got a lot of doctors really frustrated because they were, kind of ticking along nicely, as one of the doctors in our documentary says, and women were doing just fine. And then all of a sudden they were calling the office saying what did you give me? Flushing their hormones down the toilet. So today in 2025, we have a fraction of women that are on hormone therapy to deal with those symptoms. And it's really part of the reason that doctors were no longer, we're not educated about it. It's a reason that women are afraid. So there's a lot of different things that have come with it. But I guess I go back to this, along with hormone therapy, what are the other things that we need to know about in order to start feeling better and not brain fog and anxiety and sleep and leaving women with this big to-do list to try to figure out on their own? Because it's
fascinating. And I remember my mom talking about it, all those years ago, because this was around that time when she was dealing with it, and she was on HRT for a while. And I don't know for sure, but I think she may have either adjusted it or stopped altogether. And that was a big deal when that happened.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a member of media, I was young then, so I don't remember it as well as something I reported on. Maybe we did. I was in local news at the time, but I definitely know that that reverberation is still, 2025, we're still going back and addressing and referring to that study. I can't imagine being a doctor during that time or a doctor in medical school during that time.
Yeah.
And just, a lot of confusion coming with all of that. So I'm grateful for where we are today, but I'm looking forward for us, to us getting ahead of this. So another generation doesn't sit here questioning what to do and trying to figure out how to do it.
Or just being confused about it. So the book is called How to Menopause, Take Charge of Your Health, Reclaim Your Life, and Feel Even Better Than Before. And of course, that link will be in the show notes. Growing up, it was both puberty and menopause. Like, I can say that too. And especially menopause was portrayed negatively. And I remember, so I don't know if this is really like if I'm just Gen X and remember this, but the period in general was also nicknamed the curse.
Yeah.
And menopause, I remember being a child and thinking like, you were a old witchy granny when that happened. It was just this, it had its own reputation and it was scary. And so and I feel like it's part of your mission to change that. Is that fair?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that was the curse. This is the change.
Thank you.
Yeah. We never have anything that we can just name for what it is, and it's terrible.
Well, the change makes it seem so spooky.
I know.
She's
changed. Look
Can't
at her.
even name it.
She's changed. I mean, it's terrible. Yes, I want to, change that narrative. Yes, we shouldn't be talking about it as if it's something to be embarrassed about. When I first started having this conversation, I had people like, you're going to ruin your career talking about this. This is not sexy. I had another woman, maybe 10 years older than me, saying please don't go into this meeting again talking about menopause because this is not anything people want to talk about at dinner. And I was like, who doesn't want to talk about this?
Yeah.
I think I've seen big changes over just the past few years. But yeah, that connotation, it's going to take a while for us to get rid of that. I think we're doing a good job, but I think it's going to take a while. I'm like, where did you first hear it? Do you remember? I mean, you saying your mom talked about it.
Well, my mom has 7 sisters too. So would, and they, a lot of times when they would get together, they would speak Spanish, partly because we wouldn't hear what they were talking about. But I do remember hearing about it as not so much negatively, but definitely secretive. It was taboo. It was just something that wasn't talked about. It was something that was talked about in whispers, in closed spaces, and if at all. Mm-hmm. And so we need to take a quick ad break. When we get back, I have a theory about this and I want to know what you think. So we'll be right back, everybody. Y'all know I'm all about doing what you can to take care of your mental health, and Headspace is one of my favorite go-to tools. It's this super easy to use app that's helped over 100 million people, myself included, manage stress, sleep better, boost their mood, and just feel more grounded overall. Whether you're brand new to meditation or you've been doing it for years, Headspace has something for every season of life. Quick breath work for when you're on the go, full-on guided meditations, and even sleep support. It's all science-backed, taught by real teachers, and the content always feels like it was made just for me. Seriously, when I only have 5 minutes, I still get what I need. And with over 1,000 hours of mindfulness tools, I never run out of options. Lately, I've been loving their breathwork meditations. They're such a great intro to breathwork in general and a simple way to reset, especially at the end of the day. Feel good and mean it when you say it. For a limited time, get Headspace free for 60 days. Go to headspace.com/makesomenoise. That's HEADSPACE.com/makesomenoise to unlock all of Headspace free for 60 days. One more time, headspace.com/makesomenoise.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Okay, before the ad break, we were talking about this, just the negative connotation around menopause.
Mhm.
I wonder if, because of the way patriarchy works, that there were people who knew what happens to women positively when we go through menopause, like the wisdom that comes with it, the coming home to ourself, which I would love to talk to you about. That is why everyone's like, nope, we don't want to give women too much. Because of just the fear of what we might do with the newfound power we have at this stage of our life. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I think that there's a lot to be said for that, right? I mean, we weren't even part of clinical, studies and trials and everything until the mid 90s. So, that just proves your point over and over again. I'd say, sadly, nothing would surprise me. I would also say that I don't know that they didn't realize it, they didn't study it. I don't think anybody cared. Like, I just don't think they cared. I think they were like, they're past their reproductive years. What are you here for now?
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't
really
benefit us anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think culturally we looked at, we do look at age with wisdom and honor and so many of the other things that life experience brings with it. And so I do, to use your line, make some noise. That's what women are doing. They're making real noise at this time in life. I don't know why it's happened now. I don't know why we chose, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, to be doing this, but it's happening and it's getting louder and louder. And so I'm excited about that. And I'm also interested to see where it brings us in like the next 3 years or so, because I think things are moving at such a rapid rate that we are going to have some serious breakthroughs in a lot of different areas. And I'm really hopeful when it comes to women's health.
Me too. And I hope, especially what you just said, I hope in a positive way for women's health, especially. So I want to ask you this too. I know that a lot of people listening are in heterosexual relationships, whether they're married or not, or have men in their life, whether it's a father, colleague, brother, friend. And so what is your advice for someone who wants to bring men into the conversation? More specifically, like, how can women talk to the men in their life about this and make them realize like how important it is?
Yeah. Wow. It's such an important question. I mentioned my mother and I said that she went through an early medical menopause and we didn't even really know it. She had gone through breast cancer and chemotherapy, and she was hot all the time and tired all the time. So I always attributed to what was going on with her. But the truth of the matter is, I think she was also thrust into menopause. And my 85-year-old father, well, then 83, asked me a few years ago when he knew I was talking all about this. He goes, "Do you think your mom went into menopause early? Do you think that's what happened?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I think so." So I think that men want to be part of the conversation if they know there's a conversation to be had. Not all, we know that. But I do think it's incredibly important, especially when women are starting new relationships during this time, when they are going in different directions, when they're working and at the top of their game. So I think a few spaces we have to bring them into it. I think definitely in the work environment, and that's going to be a larger movement. I think in relationships with regard to communicating and not feeling like, hey, I'm in menopause, I'm so embarrassed by it. Because the truth is, if somebody really cares about you and loves you and wants to see you not suffering, they're going to care about what that's going to take. Yeah. And so I actually put together a man's guide to menopause, because I thought, I was asked this question so many times by men when I would run into them saying like, hey, I think my wife or my girlfriend's going through some of those things you talk about. And, they don't even know the words or the language, which we didn't either. Yeah. And so I put that together, and I actually had fun doing it. But I realized like it was very simple things. I made it really simple. I didn't get really complex. But I wanted men to be able to approach the conversation with a woman. So it's not us always having to, approach a conversation to them and not think that we're going to be offended if they bring up the conversation, as long as it's not done in a way like, oh, you're really, really grouchy today. Is it the change?
Is it that time of your life?
Not like that.
Instead of that time of the month. Okay. I love that. Well, and also kind of circling back to the topic around how menopause is just looked at the way that it is taboo, like in the shadows. And also, we tend to focus a lot about the side effects, which aren't fun. You know, it's like, and I have not enjoyed waking up in the middle of the night, and it's always around the same hour. And I don't wake up drenched in sweat. I told my new doctor, I said, I have super warm flashes. I don't have hot flashes. And so, but even that is like not great. But what are some of the gifts that you see that happen during perimenopause and then menopause?
It's interesting because when I was writing the book, I thought, well, I got to end this on a high note. And then I realized as I was going along and talking about these women that were, in this area, I was like, wait, there's some real gifts during this period of time. There's gifts in knowing where your strength comes from. There's gifts in understanding who you are and what you're not going to tolerate anymore and take. And there's also gifts in, I think, of the community during this time. I've never met so many people. I've never met so many people that I wanted to stay connected with and met them over real things, not like just some, superficial nonsense, but like real conversations. And we, just like you and I, you get into a real conversation quickly and it's meaningful. And so I think those are some real gifts because I take those away with me. I leave a conversation like this and I think about it and I think about it the next day and I remember it. And so I think there's some real beauty in that. And I think there's also, and I know it for myself, some real beauty in learning what happens in this second act and second chapter or third chapter, whichever one you're in, because it's a time that you kind of know who you are and some of those timeline pressures are taken off of you and you can really focus on yourself and what lights you up.
I've heard this as I follow several menopause experts now, especially on Instagram. And I know you're not a medical doctor, but I know you are an expert in this field. So I want to ask you, is it true that something happens to us hormonally, and we don't need to get into the specifics, but I'm going to be very rudimentary when I describe this. Something shifts to where whatever hormones or levels we had during our more fertile years, especially like in our 20s and 30s, that starts to go away. And those were the hormones that allowed us to show up better for other people, like be very nurturing, to care a lot, to have the energy and the mental capacity to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to childcare and nurturing and things like that. I've heard that starts to go away like around this time. And that is the thing that makes us, because I remember hearing it growing up, like you get to a certain age and you don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. And I'm like, I can't wait. Can I get there? Like, is that true that it's actually like our hormones that allow us to like have more self-confidence and set better boundaries and things like that?
There's been a lot of research that's been on that as a matter of fact, where it's kind of this curve and you got to listen to it, but it's, it starts up here and then it goes down and then it comes and kind of peaks back up again. And that's often what happens. In the documentary, we interviewed neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Mosconi about that exact thing of kind of where you start to peak with that happiness, at this time in life as a result of exactly what you're talking about. And so I find that extremely encouraging. And I like that there's some science there to go along with it. So it's not like just don't give a crap anymore.
You're right. You're a bunch of witches. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. There is a book and I'm trying to think of the name of it right now. It was like 2 years ago I read it. I think it's called The Change. You have to look it up.
It should be. It would be a good title.
But I think it's a fiction book and it's just about that. It's like the town thinks the women are witches, but they're really menopausal and they have all these powers. It's something like that. And I remember reading it going like, wow, is that ever, but yeah. And I have noticed it for myself too, aside from hearing about it and reading about it and seeing some of that data. I have noticed it's not that I walk around like, I don't give a crap anymore, but it's that if somebody doesn't like it, like, okay, I don't fixate on it all night long and then try to wake up the next day and figure out how to people please them. And I think there's something to that gives you some freedom to figure out what you finally want.
Yes.
And those are those gifts. Those are those real gifts that I think are nice because we have spent a lot of time trying to take care of everybody else, whether you had children or not, whether you're in a relationship or not, how you deal with people at work and friends and all of those things. And when you have older parents now, we do a lot for other people. There's just no question about it.
Thank you for that. And well, what is it? Is the name of the documentary called the same thing? What's the documentary?
Oh, I'm sorry. The name of the documentary is The M Factor: Shredding the Silence on Menopause.
Right.
We put that out so we could really encourage people to educate themselves and to be aware of what was going on and to kind of build that community around it. So we were pretty fascinated by it. We put it out in October on World Menopause Day, and we have had since then about 450 screenings around the world in 42 different countries. And so I get real excited by the fact that we have women from all over the world sharing that message. It's incredible.
I love that. We'll link it in the show. Can people like buy it on YouTube to watch it?
Yes,
Like,
it's on
okay.
YouTube. Yeah, it's on the website, and then a lot of people are still doing community screenings too, because we handed it out to those for about 3 or 4 months. People to be able to have education about it. We're having a couple of virtual screenings coming up as well.
Okay, awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes as well. It's the whole thing about the change in hormones, whatever that looks like on a scientific level. And I know what it has felt like for me is, and I hear this is common, is so as we're recording this, I'll be 50 very soon. And I started to get to a place where I was married for a long time. We had 2 beautiful children together, had a great marriage for a long time, but I had the voice for a while saying like, I think we've evolved to a point where we're not a good fit for each other anymore. And that voice got louder and louder and louder as time went on. But also I felt like as I got to this point in my life, it was as if I felt like I was, and this is going to sound totally cliche, but it's a self-help podcast. Like it's fine. I felt like I was coming home to myself. And it was the most clear path that I've ever felt in my entire life. Not only that, but my ability to keep walking towards that felt easier than it would have been if I had felt that way when I was 30 or 35.
What a great way to say that.
And I left my marriage. Yeah, I did. I decided to make that decision, and it was more or less a mutual decision. But I think that, well, I know that I've seen a lot of women at this age decide that their long-term relationship isn't for them anymore. And so my question is like, do you see a correlation with that? With maybe it's not a romantic relationship, maybe it's a boundary with a family member or a friendship or a job or something like that. Do you see a correlation with menopause? Okay.
I do 100%. I actually, there's one section in the book that is about relationships and dating, because I know that like a lot of women are dating again during this time if they've gone through a divorce. I went through a divorce at 41. And so I was, back out there and met my husband right smack dab in the middle of perimenopause. I do think there's a correlation. I even did in my book a section called, "Is it your husband or your hormones?" And then I kept asking myself, should I say that? Should I not? Are people going to think that's terrible? But the truth of the matter is I do see a correlation. I do think that we, have some work to do in that area to see whether or not it's an actual correlation. But we do know that a lot of women during this time are the ones that file for divorce and initiate divorce.
Yes.
So we definitely know that in midlife. And, what is it because of menopause? I don't know, but I definitely think it's because of this time in life and where we are and what we talked about before, those gifts that come on the other side of all of this, where we know who we are, what we're going to accept. And look, I'm just like you. I look back at myself and I'm like, well, I would have accepted all. I would never have accepted that now. What?
Yeah.
Who was I? But that's exciting to me, because it also lets me know that I'm very clear. I don't have to, as my brother calls it, take polls of the whole world to decide for myself.
Yeah.
But you take polls of everybody to decide something.
To get counsel. Yeah.
So yeah, I do think there is a correlation there in a lot of different ways. And I'd be interested to, really see what kind of data could support that, because it does not surprise me in the least to hear that. And so that's why I wrote a dating section in the book, because so many women were going through menopause and back out there dating.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my mom left my dad at that age, and here I am. I'd have to do the math, but I think I was only like 1 or 2 years younger than my mom when I left this marriage, when she was leaving my dad. Also, it's what's been interesting too about this stage in dating is that I wasn't dating to find quote unquote the one. I was like, this is it for me. Like I'm not looking for anyone to fulfill me. Like I had very specific reasons that were not like locking down a husband this time. Yeah. And also very much in a place where, and I think part of this could be with my career, I would not even dream of entering a relationship without being very upfront about not only like what I want from a relationship in this stage of my life, as well as how I will show, like what am I going to commit to?
Right.
Because I know that, what I bring matters as well. We need to take one more ad break. When we come back, I want to ask you about, I'm not going to spoil it. We'll be right back, everybody.
Okay.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
We're back, and I want to ask you, I know that your message is really one of hope and empowerment. It's not a book about here's how much it sucks and here's how you can get help from it and here's what you need to do. It's about hope and empowerment. And so if you could give like 1 or 2 key pieces of advice to a woman who is either about to approach it or who is in it, what would that be?
Yeah, I think 2 things. I would say you're not alone going through this, first of all, and it's not just all in your head. You're not going crazy, and you're going to get back to who you were, but better. And I really do believe that, and I believe it for a couple of reasons. I believe as women, get more information about this and know what they're going into, it feels less alone and isolating, because I think that's been what the biggest problem has. Like when a woman is going through symptoms, doesn't know what it is now like at the therapist for anxiety, is over here because of itchy skin, is over here because of weight, is over here because of not sleeping. It makes you feel like you're going crazy. Yeah. And you've got brain fog and you've got all these hormones going every which way and your period's out of control.
Yes.
That's not fair. That's not fair to women. It's not fair because we know that's what happens during this time. We can pretty much, you're in your 40s and you're having things that you've never had before. You're probably in perimenopause. You don't need somebody to do 15 blood tests to tell you that. And I'm not a doctor, but I've heard plenty of doctors say that over and over again. Now, once you get on hormones and you want to make sure, at those levels, that's the time that, you test and make sure you're in the right place and in those right levels. When I look at it and I look at where we are with all of this, I'm convinced that younger women are going to have, going into this, a better time, not easier, but a better time because they've got that information.
This makes me so happy for millennials.
Oh, me too.
So much. And God bless them. I mean, they are the generation that normalized therapy. So hopefully this is
now
a
menopause.
Right?
The word is menopause now.
Oh, okay. Menopause. Oh my gosh.
They get their own menopause.
Exactly. This is sort of random, but I was thinking about this as you were talking, when you were answering the question about our fear of, especially estrogen, because of the breast cancer thing. And I think I was also a little bit nervous to start any kind of hormones because I was on birth control pill for 16 years, which I think most of my friends were. It's like you were sexually active and you immediately got on the pill and you just stayed on it until if you were ever ready to conceive. And I think that, and also there's been, and I have a teenage daughter now. And so I look back and I think about how unwell I was in terms of my anxiety and my lack of emotional regulation. And I think was I just crazy, or was it the birth control pill?
Hormones are I'll tell you what, my 13-year-old nephew asked my sister-in-law, what's this Aunt Tamsen always talking about this menopause? And she goes, how you're going through puberty and your hormones are going to change? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, so is she, but in the other way. Hormones are a thing, they're nothing to even laugh at. I mean, they can do a lot and they can really make you feel like off the wall. Because I had some really dark days and I had some really who was I?
Yeah.
Yelling and like, wake up like miserable. I just had no idea. And so I thought there was something really wrong. Not remembering things. That was a big one that took a lot of knock on my confidence, especially at work. And so I think the sooner that you kind of understand, where all of that is, the better off you are. And, when you talk about your daughter, like they should be learning that in school. They should be learning. We go here, then we go here. Not we go here, we have children, and then we,
just all downhill.
And it's all downhill from there.
Would you be able to share with us the story of like, how did you, like, what made you, I know that you talked about the story of your mom, but like, was it your own journey into like perimenopause that made you interested in this topic?
Oh, you know what? It wasn't even into perimenopause because I didn't know about that. I had some health issues. I had an incident at work and I went to the doctor and I got my levels done. Now, I didn't go to my OBGYN initially because I didn't know it had anything to do with anything. I thought menopause is like close to like, I don't know, 60 or 70 or what, I don't know what age that is. But I did go to a doctor and endocrinologist. And then my OBGYN wrote in my patient portal who I'd had for 20 plus years, in menopause, any questions, ... Like, here's where you are right now. That's what he wrote, 4 words. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, when you read something like that, I mean, it's just like, I don't know how you're supposed to deliver the message. I don't really know, but that didn't feel like the right way for me. And it's a big change. It's a time, now I know I can never have children. Now a lot of things happen, even if you've made those decisions before. And I think that threw me into a journey of trying to figure out how to take care of myself. First, that's all it was. And then realizing a lot of women had a lot of the same questions. Then I went on social media talking about it. And then I realized this was all during COVID. There was a big conversation that, was starting. And I just kept talking. And then I started to do work on the documentary with some partners. And I don't know, it was never a decision. It wasn't like, I think after trying to be young in television for 30 years, maybe I'll talk about menopause. Like it was never can you imagine? And so every time
I'm going to rebrand.
I'm going to rebrand myself as the menopause. And I was warned against talking about it, but it happened to me really, literally and figuratively. So I've just kind of gone with it because I feel like every day I feel it's the right play. Every day I feel like I'm having the right conversations I should be having.
Wow. What a journey. And I appreciate this conversation so much. Before we close up, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that you mention or even circle back to so you can feel complete?
No, you know what? I enjoy this. I'm telling you, I will be thinking about this conversation later today, tomorrow, because I really do. I do cherish these times and the people that I'm meeting in these communities.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because I am forgetful in perimenopause and I'm going to remember something I should have said.
My brain fog has gotten so much better. It's not perfect, but it's so much better.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And I mentioned I just started my own therapy and she put me on a really low dose. And before we end, I want to make sure that this is good advice because I haven't mentioned it on the podcast, but I've told a couple of friends. I found my new OBGYN on the Menopause Society website because they have people who are, I don't think they have special training, but they're just like members of the Menopause Society. So that tells me that they're
menopause practitioners. Okay. So they've gone through like some extra courses to do that. Yeah. They have certification, which is wonderful. So it just means they've taken that extra time to go through that and be certified. And the menopaussociety.org, that's a tremendous resource. Okay. And if you put your zip code in the finder there, is that what you did?
That's what I did.
Wonderful. I'm so glad.
It pulled up probably 6 OBGYNs. They were all female. They were all women. And I went to their websites and then I checked with my insurance to see if they were in the network. And then from there, because then that narrowed it down to, I think, 3. And then from there, I called their offices and just briefly said, here's my, kind of demographic. And can you tell me if this particular OBGYN is open to the conversation of starting HRT before I show like kind of more wild symptoms? Yeah. And that's how I decided.
Wow, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tremendous resource. And then telehealth is also a tremendous resource as well. I mean, there's some telehealth companies out there that are able to see you, within a very quick amount of time. And I think that I get excited about the fact that we are every day helping more and more women, and then more and more women are sharing that message. So that's what we need.
We'll put that link in the show notes as well that we just mentioned. And is there any place in particular you want to send people to go? Because we have the book, the How to Menopause book and the documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. How to Menopause perimenopause.com is a great resource, and it'll kind of take it everywhere. And then I'm on Instagram all the time. So
yes, you are.
Tamsen Fadal.
I follow you over there. And of course, that link will be in the show notes too. Everyone, thank you for listening. I know how valuable your time is, and I appreciate that you spend it with us. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to the show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.